We are back on with Corpses and Cocktails. I forgot what our show was called.
You know it's CAC for short. CAC. It's the acronym. We love CAC. We love CAC. Yeah, we're back in CAC. Yeah.
Or CNC.
Let's get CACing.
Get CACing. So Erin and I have struggled immensely for the past 4 months to get this podcast running. So many technical issues, and we just, you know what, we were done for a little bit there. Brad has come to save us.
Well,
now it's
we'll see.
I mean, we've got a lot of issues to try and unpack here. I
could be the Yoko Ono to the Beatles, but we'll see, I guess.
See how we go.
Yeah. So, what's everybody drinking?
I'm drinking a cheap. Oh, you can go first, Jamie.
Oh, sorry. I'm just drinking a $5 bottle of wine.
Oh, hell yeah.
Jamie, that's literally us.
It could be boxed wine. It could be so much worse. So much worse. I'm literally just drinking unbranded cola.
Ooh, cheapest.
Delicious.
You know what we conclude from this session is that the cheapest drinks are the best.
Yeah. I mean, we're all very poor. Please pay us. You can subscribe to our OnlyFans where we all perform together.
Oh my god. Okay, so Erin, are you going first?
All right, yeah, so I am going
I'm happy to talk shit if you guys want to for a bit first, but...
Oh, I don't mind.
I mean, the world's on fire. I don't think there's very much to talk about. We've all been on our houses for like 6 months. So what have you been up to today? Oh, the same thing as every day? Cool. Yeah, me too.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's...
right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's very true. There's not really a lot to talk about. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Well, get ready to get sadder.
I'm really quickly.
Okay.
So sorry.
Oh my god!
I'm not editing that out.
That was a good one.
I'm gonna boost the volume on that so it's louder.
Please.
Yeah.
No judges for the burps. It's fizzy wine, okay.
Fizzy wine? What?
I love fizzy wine.
Yeah,
oh my
Is
god.
that a thing?
Wine-based beverage of a show.
Wine-based? Wine-based? I'm sorry, what? How do you have a wine base?
It just tastes delicious, Brad. Okay, it's all.
Yeah, because it's cordial. It's.
That's true. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, I love it when I
wine
like
and
open
strawberry
a bottle of
Nesquik.
wine. It's like, oh, delicious.
Okay, this is approximately 6 standard drinks, 5.9 standard drinks right here in this bottle. It's like 5. It's delicious. It's absolutely fucking amazing. I really recommend. This isn't promoting ad, but
Aldi wine, we love it. Is it Aldi? It's not Aldi.
Fruit Works.
Wow, it's quite similar. Quite similar.
So honestly, Food Works is so much more expensive.
Oh, that's so good.
The only time I ever went into a Food Works was I was on holiday with my girlfriend at the time. So that tells you how long ago that was.
You're what, 6?
Yeah, exactly right. I think I was like 13, and I went in, and Mum was like, "Oh, just get stuff for dinner." And I went in, and I got Cool Ranch Doritos and some ice cream, and came home. So like, not the healthiest trip, and it was so expensive. It was like $17 for a bag of chips and a thing of ice cream. Like, what the fuck?
Ooh.
Yeah, honestly, because I live
Where you live?
in the ghetto.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the ghetto. There are like elderly that do their entire shop here because they can't be bothered walking around to like IGA or Richie's, and I feel terrible. I'm like, you are spending so much more than you need to.
Do you say IGA or Richie's? IGA, that is the same thing, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. But I've been because I can't drive. Because I'm gay. We don't know how. Basically, I've been getting grocery deliveries, and the other day I got one delivery, and the driver called the delivery people saying that there was an item missing from the package. There wasn't. So this lady had to call me up and was like, hi, I'd just like to go through your order and make sure you got everything. And she's like, and chocolate, and you got... And, like, I got, like, embarrassing shit. Like, an embarrassing amount of junk food. Like, just a... Because I buy, like, a month's worth of food. And it was a lot. And she was like, and you got the crackers? Yep. And the chips? And the chocolate? Yeah. I was like, fuck me. You did not have to read me to filth. That was fucked. That was the most embarrassing moment. And then we went through and I had everything. I didn't even get any money back, bitch. I had everything.
Oh my god. I've heard the delivery is so much better though.
Delivery is so good.
The girl that I used to work with, because I'm not working, she was like, yeah, like we get all our food delivered and it saves so much time because, like, you know, we work from like 7 a.m. to like 3 p.m. By the time you go and look after your own horses and things like that, you're literally out of the day.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what, that would make so much sense, but I'm shopping at Aldi because I'm a cheap fuck.
Yeah. Aldi is good. Aldi should start delivery. They really should. Yeah.
And they've got a lot of products that actually taste really, really incredible. And I used to be
non-spawn.
Like
non-spawn.
non-spawn. But I used to be like so picky. Like my dad would be like, because my dad's an amazing cook. He'd be like, I cook with this, this, and this, and that's all you need. So I would specifically go to like, you know, Woolies to buy those things, and I was so fussy. And now I'm like, you know what? Does this even go in? Why not? It does now.
Smash it in. Strawberry wine, yes, please. Spaghetti.
Pretty much. Boil it with wine.
I was super duper poor growing up, and Aldi like seriously, legitimately saved my family, because Woolies and Coles were so expensive at the time. I mean, they still technically are, but like it's more affordable now, I think. Or maybe just because I have money. But Aldi, seriously, it had just been released when like my parents got divorced. So it was like, it literally saved us. Like being able to go somewhere where it was like cheap, good, like reliable food. It was like it was super important. Even though most of it, because it was imported, they didn't have like local sourcing. It came to you moldy. Like,
It was literally only a couple of months ago that we brought a massive pack of mushrooms, and I opened them straight up and they were off. And I was like, fuck.
How do you have off fungus? How do you have fungus? How do you have expired fungus? What's it gonna grow? What's it gonna grow? More fungus?
It's not really fishy.
Right.
So I was like, okay, like obviously I didn't go moldy at that point. Do mushrooms go moldy?
They could probably get like an invasive bacteria, but they probably couldn't grow more mushrooms. That's just my guess. That's just my guess.
Mushroom on the mushroom.
Mushroom more.
Otherwise it would be a never-endless supply.
Yeah.
And then, so I was a little bit disappointed because, like, I love, like, you know, my fruit and everything like that.
I love mushrooms. My favorite
I haven't
fruit.
actually had. Yes. Shut up.
Um,
This is gonna be a pick on Jamie session, and I can see it.
You know what's the best part of it's the best part about this dynamic is you guys are gonna get drunker and drunker by the end of the episode, and I'm gonna be flat sober, so it's just gonna be me picking on you guys the entire time.
And we won't even know this.
You'll be like, that is hilarious.
Good joke. Wait.
Yeah.
What?
That was like me and Jamie's entire high school career. It was just like us accidentally being mean to each other and then worrying about it.
Yeah, no, I do remember that.
Yeah.
I do remember that. And I was also like low-key like obsessed with the fact that you did archery because I really had just gotten into the Hunger Games.
Yeah, you did. You did.
And I was like, why do you do archery? And I was like, should I do it? And I had like mad social anxiety.
I fully tried to. It was like me and one other person. It was like me and one other person. And I tried to tell Jamie that it was like, girl, like just do it. It's just you, me, and this old man. Like, we could eat him. What's he gonna do?
I wonder why I said no.
It was,
Here we are making a murder podcast.
Yeah, well, look. The call came from inside the house.
All right, should we get started?
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know how we're going to keep it, like, you know, like who goes next in the next episode we go. But I guess we'll keep it going in a circle somehow. With 3, it'll be extra fun.
Yeah.
We'll see how we go. But so I am going to be starting off today, And the case I will be doing is the Azaria Chamberlain case.
Whoop whoop.
So-
Question time.
I haven't heard of
Sorry?
this one.
Necessary.
I mean, you probably would have heard a dingo stole my baby. So if you do not know that, then can you really call yourself Australian?
Well, I've heard the tagline, but I didn't know her name. Is that the lady's name or the baby's?
This is the baby's name.
Right.
So
that's probably why.
Yeah. So it's an incredibly famous Australian case, which kind of bases around, obviously, dingo stealing someone's baby.
Yeah.
And it was, a massive media case, happened in the Northern Territory, and very sad, case because it involved a baby. But yeah, so I'll start into the details. So Azaria, which is blessed by God, is the name, was born on the 17th of August in Queensland to parents Alice Lindy Chamberlain and Michael Lee Chamberlain. So the family went on holiday to Ayers Rock, Uluru in the Northern Territory on the 13th of August. So they drove up there and at 8 p.m, on the 17th of August, it was their first night in, so they pitched their tent, and Lindy had settled the children into bed. She had a 5-year-old and then Azaria at the time. So Azaria is 9 weeks old at this point, and she suddenly cried out at about 8 p.m. Lindy went to the tent, noticed that Azaria was missing, and called out, "Oh my God, the dingo's got my baby." So throughout the night, Aboriginal trackers and others went searching for Azaria. However, Azaria has not been found, and not to this day, unfortunately. So within the week, Azaria's bloodstained clothing was located. It was close to the bottom of Ayers Rock. So there was also blood on the inside of the tent, and paw prints were also leading out from the tent entrance. So dingoes had been noticed following close in the campground. They had been following people around. There had also been recent dingo attacks as well in the previous months on young children. That night, a witness had noticed that Lindy said, "Don't encourage it," when her young son Bobby threw a piece of bread to a dingo. So they're very prevalent. Yeah. So you could see them. They've been witnessed there. They're very obviously, hanging around the campsite.
They do hover a lot. They do. Dingoes do.
Yeah. So for people who don't know what dingoes are, they're basically Australian dogs. They
look
a lot like dogs. Wild dogs. And they're, they are an Australian native animal. So they're kind of like the wolves of Australia.
If you're in America, they're a bit like coyotes.
True.
Yeah.
When I was camping, I camped up in the Northern Territory near Ayers Rock and things like that. And we actually had dingoes come up to our campsite, and because we were throwing food away, I was literally within meters of a dingo. And they were very quite scared, but I think they were more scared of not eating rather than them being scared of humans.
Scavengers, basically, yeah.
Yeah. And you hear about wild dogs as well being quite dangerous, and not to get too close to them. So they're basically the same.
Yeah.
They can attack, if they're provoked, as they are in the end carnivores, and they have big teeth and they can be quite scary. So dingoes are very much prevalent in the area. So obviously, because a baby has been missing, there were 4 lawmen that were assigned to the case. However, Detective Sergeant Graham Charlwood, he took over the case on the 28th of August. So this is about 11 days after Azaria's disappearance. So what they did was examined Azaria's clothing that was found. There was blood on the clothing, also vegetation and some hair samples. Around the Ayers Rock, they also shot any dingoes that looked close to, I know, which is very sad, any dingoes that were that looked like the dingo that had
Any
Azaria.
guilty looking dingoes.
You know what? Literally anything. If
What
you
the
look
fuck?
like that dingo, I know.
Yeah.
That's. I guess that's what they did. back
Someone's
then. Shot all
Labrador
the
that's just
dingoes.
walking by.
That's the same color. I'll shoot
Yeah.
that. But what they did, they wanted to see if there were any bones, or
Right,
you know, to see if there was
Yeah,
anything inside
in
of
the
them
feces,
to inspect for human remains. This is also another one of their investigations, which I found really strange. I don't know if this would, is really the best forensic work, but they would wrap clothing and nappies around a piece of meat to see how the dingoes would eat it, and what scrapes and tears would go on the clothing, which is I was like, okay.
In order, the immediate thing that's coming to my mind that like if they're shooting dingoes that are hanging around, the dingo that's just eaten or potentially just eaten this baby is not going to hang around because it's eaten.
Like you would think it would have gone maybe somewhere else. I mean, they were scrabbling, I think, though, and this was back before they really had a lot of really good technology, I guess, back then. So they didn't really have a lot. This is what they really could go on. So that's kind of what happened. So this is where really the media kind of stepped in. There were a lot of rumors. There were a lot of speculations. I think a lot of it was to do with Lindy's her demeanor.
Yeah.
So it seemed like she wasn't a grieving mother. She was very sure on what happened. She's like, well, a dingo stole my baby. She did multiple interviews where she was like, these are the facts. And, I think really Australia kind of was like, why aren't you grieving? Why aren't you in absolute hysterics? So it kind of almost has been like a trial by media for her.
Well,
Which was, and, there was one of the rumors was, so Lindy and Michael were Seventh-day Adventists. They were in the church.
Yeah.
And they said, rumors said that Lindy had sacrificed her child to atone for the sins of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which was linked to the Jonestown Massacre. So, they were like trying to atone for those sins. And I'm like,
so they were just grasping at straws.
Literally anything. They were just, I guess back then that's all you could do, really.
But I remember hearing about this. And I'm like, but if they found paw prints coming out, like, she's not going to anamorph into a coyote and suddenly place paw. Like, how the fuck is she going to get paw prints?
And they say like with the like hysteria, like, oh, she's not reacting enough. It's like, well, if you're adamant that something has happened, you're not going to really react the way that others want you to. You're going to be really, like, I know that I stepped on a needle. Like, you can't tell me otherwise because I saw it.
Did that happen today?
Kind of so don't expect her to. No.
Wow. So you've been really chill.
Yeah, so, and I think as well, because, straight after the baby had gone missing, Michael and Lindy were like, it's the will of God. If this is what happens, then, God has said, and I guess that's their religion.
That doesn't
That's
help.
how I guess they coped. I know, but it did not look good for them. I mean, it definitely does not look good at all.
Yeah.
There were the kind of rumors that were going around, as well as, how the media portrayed Lindy. So they did the first inquest on December 16th, 1980, just a couple months after Azaria's disappearance. And so it concluded that Azaria was taken by a dingo. However, that the body of Azaria was taken from the dingo and disposed by a person or a person's name unknown. Which I don't know how that happened. Why they would have thought that
they found the body?
Yep, and then buried it somewhere.
So, but had the authorities found the body to make that conclusion, or is it just because they couldn't find it that's what they assumed? Because they couldn't find it, there must be some foul play.
Yep, exactly.
Fuck. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and This, however, didn't discourage the Northern Territory Police. They did their own investigations, so they searched Lindy and Michael's house. They also talked to a British forensic expert named James Cameron to examine the clothing
his
of
movies.
Azaria. I know.
That's familiar.
Yeah.
Well, this is the British forensic expert, the different James Cameron.
I don't believe
said
it.
that. I know. I mean, he's one, very fantastic man that's done a lot of movies. I mean,
Change of career.
won't be surprised.
Wow. Yeah.
Exactly.
He turned on a dime.
So many exposures.
And he said that no dingo could have, done that, the damage to her clothing. He said that the tears didn't look like dingo teeth, and that the damage and the blood was done by, in fact, a person. And when Lindy was told this, she's like, well, I didn't know that there are any British experts on dingo
Australia,
activities.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
That's instantly what came to mind. I was like, oh, an English person is telling us about an Australian animal. That's cool.
An animal.
Love that,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's, and you think you'd want to like compare but I think this is when the Northern Territory Police, you know what, I'm not saying it was bad. When some policemen, I feel like, or people, they get in their head that they're right and they have a gut instinct, and sometimes this gut, the instinct turns into, it's right, but sometimes it's wrong.
Yeah.
But they really believed that this is that Lindy was somewhat...
The media was probably forcing them, like, they need this to be Lindy's fault.
Yeah. So there was a second inquest into the death of Azaria, was opened a year later in December. So what had been found was a large amount of blood in Lindy's automobile. So biologist Joy Cool, she testified that she found fetal blood beneath the passenger seat of the car. James Cameron, again, our British forensic expert, also claimed that the tear in Azaria's jumpsuit was more consistent with scissors. And the blood evidence persuaded the judge to charge Lindy Chamberlain with murder and Michael as being an accessory after the fact. So on September 1982, Lindy, who was now pregnant, stood trial for the murder of Azaria. Jury selected were all white, and there were 9 men and 3 women.
Nice.
There were lots of witnesses that were called to, and they collaborated with Lindy's story that a dingo did take the baby. People heard a baby cry out when Lindy, before Lindy left, to go to the tent to check on her, and that's when she cried out. And she was not gone for more than 10 minutes during the night. So they just felt there wasn't enough time for her to commit the murder.
Yeah.
However, one witness did notice the odd behaviour from Lindy and Michael, with Michael saying that, Dingo has taken our baby, she's probably dead by now, and with Lindy saying, again, this is God's will. They also noticed that Lindy and Michael were gone for about 20 minutes at a certain time, people thinking that perhaps this is when they buried her body. So the prosecution depended heavily on the blood in Lindy's car, which is where they said the murder carried out. However, the Chamberlains had recently picked up a bleeding hitchhiker, which had a large amount of presence of blood. Hang on, I'm just going to pause for a second. You two, cut it out. Off you go. Go on.
She's talking to us.
Sorry, they were playing. I'm sorry. Sorry. They were just playing and being very loud and distracting.
I'll let it out.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll start again. However, Lehan did not carry high levels of the fetal hemoglobin blood. And Jo Cool actually said that her tests came, but she believed that the test actually belonged to an infant, which is the blood belonged to an infant. So all of her blood tests had been destroyed, which she said was standard procedure in her laboratory. James Cameron also came to stand as well to fight that Lindy's clothing, it had been done by a human, and it actually showed bloody fingerprints with ultraviolet light. And which I was looking up, there has been recent, James Cameron has done in previous testimonies, he has incriminated other people that actually were innocent suspects. So not a lot of reliability.
I mean, Avatar wasn't even that good.
I mean, it got taken over by Avengers, so
exactly right.
So everyone thought that, you know what, Lindy's going to be acquitted. Like, there's no way they have enough evidence to convict her. Everything was going to be fine. And even the media was like, oh yeah, Lindy's surely to be, acquitted. However, she was found guilty of murder on the 29th of October, which she was to serve a life sentence for. And Michael was found guilty to being an accessory, and he served a suspended sentence.
What year was that?
That was 1982.
So it took him 2 years.
2 years.
Shit.
Yep. And the jury verdict was greeted with mostly approval within Australia.
Media bias, yep.
Yep, media bias. So news reports about a year or two after started casting doubt on the prosecution's scientific evidence because it turned out that the blood in Lindy's car was actually not blood. It was paint. So
not only did they not find hemoglobin, they didn't find anything.
There was nothing.
Oh my God.
There was not. Yeah, so it wasn't in fact blood, which is what their prosecution was heavily relying on. Also, over 100,000 Australians signed petitions calling for her release, which I thought was pretty good in 1985, seeing as there wasn't really a lot of social media back then. But however, one poll did still show that 52% of the nation believed that she was guilty.
Poll ran by the media, so I mean they're not going to.
That's true.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
do they do it at census time?
That's true. That was the question on the census.
Knock. Hi, I'm here to talk about the dingo stole my baby, lady. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think, uneducated bystander?
Also, how many members live in your household?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So we don't know how true that was, but I think it was still talked about that she was still suspected. So it was in January 1986. A hiker named David Brett, he fell from Ayers Rock, and unfortunately that killed him. So 8 days later, his body was found, which was close to a couple of dingo lairs, which police, kind of scoured to see if they could find any, maybe missing bones from other hikers. And what they found was Azaria's matinee jacket, which Lindy and Michael had said had gone missing, but the prosecution did not believe, and just said that they had hidden it, and it was just to show that, they wanted to see that dingoes had stolen them, but in fact, a dingo had stolen the matinee because it was found it in a dingo lair.
Yeah.
So this is when Chief Minister ordered Lindy's release from prison, because there was a lot of skepticism from the prosecutors regarding the missing matinee jacket. And she left the gates of the Berrima prison on February 7, 1986. So
4 years in prison.
4 years in prison.
Fuck.
Yep.
That's rough.
Yep. So,
Rough,
1980s. I know, rough. It's pretty rough.
I don't know why that was the only word in my vocabulary then to describe 4 years in prison, but rough,
Woof.
rough was the one.
Oof, very rough. So they did an inquest into Joe Cool's and James Cameron use of their forensic investigation.
False testimony.
The false testimony and such a miscarriage of justice. And what I looked up as well is that Joy Cool, she had continued working in the forensic departments even after this whole mishap with her, thinking that blood was, actually paint.
Yeah.
Well, that paint was blood. So, so that was, just to see how they could, something as bad as that had gone through. So Lindy wrote a book in 1990 called Through My Eyes, and then a movie called A Cry in the Dark, which Meryl Streep actually played Lindy. Really, really good movie. I remember watching it. And in 1992, Lindy finally received 1.3 million from the Northern Territory for the wrongful imprisonment. And on June 12th, 2012, there was a fourth, hopefully final inquest that concluded Azaria was in fact killed by a dingo, and her death certificate was charged to that fact. However, to this day, Lindy does say that people still come up to the street making dingo howls at her, as well as telling her to her face that she is a murderer. So I saw an interview on her last night. So today is actually a day that it's been 40 years since she's disappeared.
Today?
Today marks 4 decades of her disappearance. And she said, it feels like 100 years, but also does just feel like yesterday that it happened. She says that she tries and lives her life as happy as she can, because that's all you can do. If you can't laugh at yourself, then what's the point in living? She has some amazing hair. She's got some nice blue and pink purple hair. And the final quote on that interview, she said, "Be true to yourself and take your own path, because people will judge you no matter what." And that is the Azaria Chamberlain case and the injustice that Lindy Chamberlain faced because of her death.
Shit.
Wow.
That is nuts.
I know, it is very heavy, but she's living very happy now. And she's actually doing a mini series with Channel 10, Australia's Channel 10, that will be coming out, I think, very soon. They didn't
You
say
would
dates.
not trust the media after what they did.
I know. After that,
That was a good idea.
Yeah.
That is insane. I remember, so I went on a camping trip to Alice Springs, and Uluru is it's a lot of ground to cover. And so when you said like that they weren't able to find that man's body for like quite a while, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I think it's something like 10-12k, and if you're walking it in like 40-degree heat, and it's ridiculous. But I remember we stayed at a small town just nearby, and I remember one night I heard the dingoes howl. As they were howling, they were also getting closer. So each howl got closer, and you could just hear them moving down the mountain that was right near us. And it's terrifying. And people look at dingoes, and you think of Labradors. They don't look intimidating.
No.
They are
Big.
They'll fucking kill you, man.
They'll kill you.
They will kill you.
Yeah, and I think that's.
And then they will
there
steal
has
your
been
best jacket.
Like, they will steal your baby.
Snatched.
But I think that as well, people were like, well, there has been no deaths caused by a dingo. Like what? There has been no. Yeah, exactly. But there has actually been, from what I've heard, 3 fatal attacks since Azaria.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
And I think Fraser Island as well is one of those big ones. Is that there are a lot of kind of close calls at Fraser Island, from what I've heard as well.
So, yeah, but you know what? We can leave on a happy note that Lindy's living her life to the fullest now, and that we should be really happy. And for her, that even though what she went through was very horrible, she has taken that in her stride. So.
That one is
heavy. It was a bit heavy.
I've heard about that so many times.
Well, I think it was certainly such a conflicting case, because you don't know what to believe, and that's the media and the forensics, and
Yeah.
And I still before I'd even
Before
I'd even looked into this case, I was like, well, there was blood in the car. Like, obviously she did it. And then actually looking into it, I'm like, oh.
But you don't hear about the other stuff. It's just like, well, she had blood in the car, and then she said the dingo stole her baby. Like, you get such a skewed view of like everything. It's
I guess that's the role of the media too. You've got to look at both perspectives. But, depending on popularity, the media will give you what you want to hear.
Recently, I think it was it The Australian that came out and said that it's their job to entertain, not educate. That they are allowed to take a creative license, and that they should not be defamed for it. So that's
when that makes you a magazine. That makes you a magazine, not a bloody newspaper.
Even magazines have to tell, like, they should be telling the truth. Like, integrity wise, I don't care if Amy Schumer looks fat in that dress, but like, at least be truthful.
And you think naturally, as as like a news source and a media source, you would tell the truth to cover your ass on defamation cases. Like you see,
exactly.
especially these days, there are so many defamation cases coming out. Like I feel like personally, you wouldn't want to risk that. Like these are big celebrities that you talk about and people, and you know,
Yeah.
if you're gonna make such a big news source out of it, you gotta make sure it's fucking correct.
Clive Palmer's suing a YouTuber at the moment. Yeah.
YouTuber?
Yeah. So the YouTuber Friendly
Who isn't he
Geordies,
suing?
Friendly Geordies, posted a video where he called Clive Palmer a fatty McFuckhead, and then he made T-shirts about it because Clive Palmer said,
That's just called profit. It's just called profit.
yeah, he sent a letter to Jordan. Saying, I'm gonna sue you if you don't take down that video. And so instead of like taking down the video, Jordan was like, no, fuck you. And then he made a picture of Clive Palmer on this shirt, and it says, Clive Palmer is a fatty McFuckhead, and then in brackets, in my opinion.
In my opinion.
Yeah. I thought that was quite good.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's a good one.
I've seen a couple of people share it on Facebook today, just alone, about something about Scott Morrison selling Google and I think maybe even YouTube to other companies, and they'll be able to have access to our data and things like that.
They are changing the law, and a lot of people are fighting this, but they're changing the law to allow news companies to have access to personal data. So basically your search history, your use will be released to the Murdoch media, and they can use that essentially to skew results. So basically Rupert Murdoch will now be able to make it so that the Herald Sun comes to the top instead of like an independent news article. So basically they will have total domination of the information network. Yeah. Very, very, very fun time that they're doing this while Parliament, while we can't protest. Very, very fun.
Yeah.
This is when they get everything through.
Yeah.
Don't you? Yeah.
Yeah. You guys ready to get even heavier?
Yes.
Oh God.
I'm finishing with the lighthearted, aren't I?
Yeah. So I am doing David Parker Ray. David Parker Ray. He is the toy box killer. He is from New Mexico. He is just a very fun man. He had just very fun hobbies. So basically he was born in November 6th, same birthday as me, which is why I'm doing him. Like, I am fully self-involved. I was like, which serial killers do I share a birthday with? He is a vibrant Scorpio. He is truly deranged.
I love you so much, Brad.
Every single trigger warning you could possibly have is in this. It's got rape, it's got disfiguration, drugging, it's got murder, obviously. But barely any people know. Have you heard of the Toy Box Killer?
I have.
You haven't. Okay. So,
I'm coming in raw.
David Parker Ray was born November 6, 1939 in New Mexico to an abusive drunk father who would basically beat the shit out of his wife and the kids. So he had 2 siblings, I believe, a brother and a sister. And when David was 10, he and his 2 siblings moved in with his mother's parents when the mother and father divorced. The father, very fun habit, would visit David at the grandparents' house and bring him porno magazines. Normal dad stuff.
I was just thinking that. I was like, my dad does that all the time.
Yeah, he comes over, he brings
I did
Vaseline, pornography, vodka, just really fun stuff. I saw that casual lean.
You see that?
Yeah.
Have a look.
Yeah. So yeah, he would visit, and his mum wasn't in the scene at all. So she was a drug addict, and she left them as soon as they got divorced. So she basically threw the kids at the grandparents and then left, which is very foreshadowing. His home life was apparently super, super terrible. He was abused by his dad. The dad was super, super controlling. He had these guidelines that David and his siblings did not protect and did not abide by. They would be they would get starved and beaten and I should preface this. I got all of my information from an All That's Interesting article, and a video by Bailey Sarian, and they kind of conflicted on some things. I don't know if there was just more spice to the video, but the article had information that wasn't necessarily present in the 40-minute documentary that I watched. But yeah. So his home life was really bad, but his school life was equally terrible. So he really had no escape. He would get bullied all the time because he was quite a small kid and quite shy. Other kids used to like beat the shit out of him and call him names, and he and some psychologists believe that this is the cause for his anger problems. He wasn't known for, like, he didn't have the trifecta, which is like the burning stuff, killing animals, and bedwetting. He didn't have any of that. So there was like no precursor to his crimes, which is quite interesting.
You can escalate incredibly quickly.
Yes, you can. So when his dad brought him porn, it was all, and not to like kink shame, but it was all like really abusive stuff. So like BDSM and like more graphic, violent, rapey stuff. So he grew up with that. So his father started delivering him this porn when he was super young, like in elementary school. Which growing up like that, you would get desensitized, I think, especially when it comes from a parental figure. But for a long time, David actually kind of seemed like he was doing okay, despite like his home life. He had joined the army, he was a mechanic there, and he received a honorable discharge, which basically means that the army just said, you've served your time, fuck off. And then basically he was a mechanic well into his 50s. So he stayed in that profession that he was in the army, and stayed at his entire life. His co-workers really liked him. They said he was really dependable. They were like, yes, girl, did you stone those tights? And he actually was so well liked that he got married. He got married 4 times. He's been married 4 times.
Wow.
I can't get married once. Just like to point out.
And you don't kill people.
Yeah. I haven't even eaten anybody. But yeah, so when he married his first wife, I couldn't find her name, but he married his first wife and confided in her that when he was when he was 14, he captured a girl, tied her to a tree, tortured her, and then killed her. He told his wife that. And so during the relationship...
Tell me
she
leaved him. Did she leave him?
No, she did not. She did not. She waited for his...
love.
She said that obviously he was like mentally deranged. She thought that maybe it was just like a lie she told him to be scary. But over the course of the marriage, she noticed that his behavior began getting super disturbing and dark, which is what eventually drove her to leave him. David has been married and divorced 4 times, as I said, and he had 3 children during this time, one of which is named Jessie, and remember her name because she will come out later. So the kids now have completely distanced themselves from him. I wonder why, but yeah. So
Emily's family.
Yeah, so he had been committing crimes since he was 14, but our story kind of starts when he was 50. Because this is when we have the most information. So he lived in a place called Elephant Butte. It's Butte. I'm guessing it's Butte. It could be Butt. I don't think anybody's going to call it Elephant Butt. But you know what? There is comedy in that, so I don't know. And next to that town, there is another town called Truth or Consequences. That's the name of the town. Truth or Consequences, yes.
Where are they?
Yes, she is living in a pageant fantasy.
I mean, this makes sense.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, Truth or
At
Consequences.
least one serial killer.
And between these 2 towns was a man-made reservoir, which like was a giant quarry that had a lake in it. So they'd filled this lake and it was super deep, and all the oldies loved it. So it was filled with a ton of old people who go there boating and they picnic and they'd fish and like all this shit in this place. Because it became a tourist trap, it brought in a lot of crime. So, and this was in the documentary. Basically, they said it was a beacon for drifters, sex workers, homeless people, and drug addicts. And they would hang out around the lake and set up camp to sleep for the night. And in 1999, the 2 towns had the highest crime rate in America. Yes.
Wow.
Oh my god.
1999. Which is not that not that long ago.
Yeah, I was born in 1999.
I'm 98, so like just then, yeah.
Wow.
most of the crimes were happening and being perpetrated against sex workers and drug addicts, and the police basically didn't do anything about it. They would wash their hands of the crimes, and they would often be described as having no human involved. So basically, like, the victims were not even classed as humans. So there was no human involved. It was like property was being damaged, even though they actually care about property being damaged. So just
I'm like,
very
they're
fucked
less
up
than
shit.
property.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh.
And David, over the years, had made a ton of money. He was living with his girlfriend named Cindy in a mobile home in a trailer park. Who is surprised? And he had decided, since he'd made so much money, he was going to cash in and essentially fulfill his fantasy. He wanted this trailer that he could deck out and be like a torture chamber. And this building is what would become his toy box. So between the two of them, they spent $100,000 and bought a soundproofed trailer. And with the they bought the trailer and they bought supplies and tools and giant sex toys, like really intimidating. That's coming from a gay man. This is intermediary for us. Like really scary shit. Like really scary, like triple fist sizes and like, yeah.
Did you say both of them?
Yeah,
Like, was Cindy
was involved. Cindy was involved. So he had met Cindy and basically she had, it's not that she wanted to perpetrate, but she was willing to be like sort of I almost said an appliance. She was willing to be, she's a toaster. She's willing to be an accomplice. Maybe I'm drunk, who knows? But yeah, so Cindy, she has a name. She has a dumb name. Her name is Cindy Hendy, but when I first heard it, I thought her name was Cindy Schmindy. I was like, what the fuck? Why?
That's actually genuinely, like, that's an American name. That's just a pure
Cindy
American
Hendy.
name.
That sounds exactly like a Christmas story. What's that? Cindy Lou Who? Cindy Hendy.
Cindy Lou.
And she just looks like the prettiest meth addict you've ever seen.
Oh,
but
bless.
the walls of the toy box, this trailer, were plastered in porn. This really violent porn. And who's surprised? And some of this porn, they think, came from the dad, so he kept it all of those years. And he had, because he was a mechanic, he was sort of super handy with building as well. And he had a really fun hobby of making sex toys. And one of his toys was a dildo made of PVC pipe. And if you don't know what PVC pipe is, it's that hard plastic. And it was the size of a dinner plate. It was like this. Yes. And it was giant hard plastic. And I'm talking like a hamburger in diameter. And yes, I do measure things in hamburgers.
Literally, it's like whenever I think of a genuine PVC pipe, it's at least
like a
this,
down
and
pipe. It's like a down pipe.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a genuine, like
and
a butter.
that's not the worst part. At the base of the PVC dildo was nails that would protrude like this all around the base. So the person would go down onto it and be stabbed by the nails. So it would cut them up, basically, on re-entry. Yes. Jagged, and it had essentially a collar of nails. He was big into nails. And I did tell you this yesterday. I was like, one word, nails.
Oh, I thought you meant the possum that fell out the tree.
No.
I was just like, no, I just assumed that, like, okay, the possum fell out the tree, so it had really shitty nails. It was not
What the fuck?
That's what I thought.
No, I was like, I'll give you a hint of what I'm doing tomorrow. Nails. And then you replied, no, haha, it fell out of the tree. I was like, oh, well, yes. So he was big into nails. Everything has nails in this place. And another one that I promise I won't go into all of them because they're all really fucked up. But he essentially made penetration machines, which is like a machine that has a dildo on the end that is meant to be like a hands-free thing. Except he designed them so that they would go so fast they would damage the person. Basically, they were so big and so fast that the person would get friction burns, they get cuts and tearing, blunt force internal injuries, and prolapsing. It was not for pleasure. His big thing was he wanted to cause pain. And the way he did this was he had a gynecologist chair in the middle of the toy box that he would strap women into. And above the toy box was a mirror that he would force the women to watch themselves. Yeah. Yes. And so he could also watch himself. Really, really fucked up shit. And he also had a machine that was called the racking machine, which basically forced a person to bend over and he forced them to be exposed. And he would essentially allow his friends to come over and obviously rape that person. And the grossest part is that they would bring their dogs over and they would have their dogs rape the women. And he had this really fun habit where he would put gravy on the women and let the dogs... Yes. So that's the grossest part. We're over the hill. we're over the hill.
Just take a massive drink.
Yes. So that's the toy box. And there's so much more. Like, he had really terrifying shit. There was, like, surgical implements, and he would cut up the bodies in there, and, like, it was just a nightmare. And there were signs all over that was, like, Satan's den, and he was big into Satanism. So he professed himself to be a Satanism. He said that that's why he did what he did, essentially. Yes, so... We've heard about the toy box, so let's go on to the victims. So David didn't want consenting adults for this, obviously, because obviously nobody would consent to being raped by a dog. On March 22nd, this is the most prevalent victim in the case. I don't want to say prevalent because it makes her sound more important than the others, but this is the one we know the most about because she was the only one that was conscious. Fully conscious. She wasn't as drugged as the others, so he would drug them and he would use medications that, like phenobarbital, that would essentially, he'd use date rape drugs so that they would fall unconscious and not be able to remember their ordeal. Essentially in a parking lot on March 22nd, 1999, he was posing as an undercover police officer. He approached a woman named Cynthia in this parking lot. She was a sex worker at the time. She offered him a blowjob for $10, and he took this opportunity to tell her that he was an undercover cop and that she was under arrest for solicitation. He handcuffed her and put her in the back of his car and took her back to his house. You'd think you'd twig on when that happened, but she was already handcuffed, so she couldn't escape the situation. He takes her to the trailer and handcuffs her to a bed in the trailer. She is fully awake. He did this thing with all of his victims where he would put a choker chain around their necks. If you've ever seen, it's like a leather collar with nails that stick into the neck. So if you try to escape, he pulls it, you die. It's very sore. It's incredibly sore-like. But yeah, so she had this collar on and she ended up being captured for 3 days. 3 full days that she was raped by all of his friends and their dogs. And yes, really, 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 I told you, heavy hitter, very heavy hitter. And while he would go to work, his girlfriend, Cindy Bindi, would supervise the victims to make sure they didn't escape, to make sure they didn't die while he wasn't there because he wanted to kill them. Like a fucked up daycare, basically. And he made a mistake. She made a mistake, I should say. She gets a phone call and accidentally leaves the keys to the chains on the side table where Cynthia is laying. Cynthia instantly twigs onto it and she starts scooting herself over to the table and to get the keys. And while she's trying to unlock herself, she's fumbling because she's so high adrenaline. She fumbles for a while, and before she can get them off, Cindy hears this, and she hangs up, and she runs back over to Cynthia, jumps on her, starts trying to knock her out. She's hitting her as hard as she can in the head, trying to knock her out. Cindy grabs a lamp off a nearby coffee table and smashes it over Cynthia's head, and she fully must have a skull like I don't know, like a football helmet, because she did not go down. She still got
Yes,
the cuffs
girl,
off. She got the
yes.
chains off. It is so impressive. And she managed to free herself. So they go to the ground, and Cynthia grabs an ice pick that's laying nearby, as you do, and she stabs Cindy in the side of the head. So Cindy gets either, and the information is kind of conflicting. Some reports say that she got stabbed in the temple, some in the neck, but we can just assume that it's in the side of the head. And Cynthia hits the ground. She's unconscious. And Cynthia runs outside. She's still got the dog collar on. She's completely naked, covered in blood. And she starts running down the street, and people are driving past her. She's calling for help, and people are driving past her. People won't open their doors. People are just, they don't want to. It's a small town. They think, well, it's obviously just a drug addict, gone mental. No one would help her. And then finally, she finds a house, another mobile home that will let her in. A lady answers and brings her in and calls the cops. The cops come and take her to the hospital for treatment. And they ask her what happened. Cynthia starts recounting her story, and the police basically shrug her off. Because she was a sex worker, because she was a drug abuser, she is essentially in, like, just, it takes so long to get through everything that happened, because it's 3 days worth of abuse. And as she's sitting there giving her statement, Miss Cindy walks in with a head wound. The girl who just got stabbed by Cynthia. So Cynthia freaks the fuck out, and she goes, that's the lady who got me. And so the police instantly go and get Cindy. And they finally decide to do some actual police work, and they check out the house, and they see evidence that Cynthia wasn't lying. Cynthia had mentioned that there was a waste bucket. She was forced to shit and piss in a bucket instead of a toilet. They found the broken lamp, they found the ice pick, they found the blood. Basically everything that Cynthia had described was in this toy box. And it was so much. Like, they were fully about to just let her go without taking, any care at all. Police pull David out of work, and they pull Cindy into custody as well. They get a warrant to do a full search of the property, and they go into the trailer, and they find just the mother load of incriminating evidence ever. Like, the biggest ever. Basically, investigators determined from this investigation, it was the first investigation, that Satanism was the cause for the crimes, because there was a super expensive camera that was pointing at the gynecology chair. He used to record the victims. Yes. He fully didn't think he was ever going to be caught. Ever. He didn't think he was ever going to be caught. And next to this camera was a clipboard, like a corkboard on the wall, with a bunch of dates between 1993 and 1997. So on this list was a list of about 40 dates. So investigators think that it's 40 different women who have been abducted, tortured, and killed. Yes. Next to that was a bulletin board that had pictures of the victims tied up, being murdered. And next to that was a bulletin board. He had a lot of bulletin boards. It was he took
notes.
He took notes. He really did. And next to that was a bulletin board of a set of guidelines that David had set for himself and some other people who were obviously coming in to rape the victims. It said, "A woman will do or say anything to get loose. Kick, scratch, offer money, bite, yell, beg, scream, run, offer sex, threaten, lie, wait for opportunity to strike, standard excuses, like she's menstruating or pregnant, and other really disgusting shit." It then says, "Don't let it get to you. If she's worth taking, then she's worth keeping." Yes. He then says that they have to be subjected to hypnosis before they can be safely released. Never trust a captive. Yes. And on one of these videos from the VCR, they find footage of a woman who appears to be drugged, who is naked and tied to the chair. She is in and out of consciousness. He would play this audio tape that he called his hypnosis track. Essentially, it was 4 hours long, and it had two sides. It was like 8 hours long. and it would describe what he was going to do to them. So it was designed to terrify them as much as possible. And it would essentially describe to them what they would have to do to not get murdered. They had to address him as master and Cindy as mistress. They would be treated like a dog, just really horrific shit. And if it gives you any indication, the recording starts with, "Hello there, bitch." Like,
Oh my god.
he was nuts. And in this audio tape, he basically insinuated that he was not acting alone, that there was a huge faction of the community that was helping him perpetuate these crimes. The FBI was trying to figure out who this lady was, and the only piece of identifying information was a tattoo that she had. So the FBI used, I don't know how they did it, because the video, and you can see it online, it's so grainy. You can't see anything, but they found out what that tattoo was and they released it to the public. Yes, and this lady named Kelly Garrett was like, "Oh shit, that's my tattoo," after her ex-husband's mum identified that as her. Her ex-stepmom messaged her like, "Hey, I think this is you," and so she goes to the police and she's like, "Yeah, hey, that's my tattoo," and so they tell her that she's on this tape, and then they show her the tape.
They don't show her.
They show her the tape.
She wouldn't remember it because she was
Yes.
so drugged.
She was drugged. So Kelly Garrett later testifies that she and her husband got into an argument that day, and so she wanted to get out of the house, so she went out for drinks and pool. She was at the local bar, the Blue Water Saloon, and while inside, Kelly Garrett runs into her old friend Jessie, which is David's daughter. Kelly Garrett was saying that Kelly Garrett said that she knew Jessie for a while, so she was comfortable hanging out with Jessie, and after her friends left, she was left alone with her. And after one drink, Kelly Garrett began feeling really dizzy and sick, but she'd only had one beer. So she asked Jessie for a ride home, and Jessie was like, "Sure, girl, no worries." And after that, she blacked out. Jessie had
Don't
drugged
fucking
Kelly.
trust anyone.
Jessie had drugged Kelly and drove her to the trailer and delivered her to the father. Yes.
Oh my god.
So there was actually a whole team. And Kelly woke up locked in the toy box and had the dog collar on her neck. Apparently she was slipping in and out of consciousness during her 3-day ordeal. Basically, he was keeping her in a drug-induced stupor like he did with everybody else. They theorized that it was sodium pentothal and phenobarbital to make her have this induced amnesia so that she wouldn't remember her ordeal. After all of the abuse, David thought that she was dead, so he dumped her on the side of the road, where she was found by a passerby who actually drove her home. After she was dropped off, her husband assumed that she was cheating on him. She kept explaining that she didn't remember what happened, and the husband accused her of being on a drug bender, so he filed for divorce and divorced her within a week. Yes. And
That breaks my
yes.
heart.
Yes. And then she moved to Colorado. And after her ordeal, she began having nightmares about the night. Basically, she was reliving her ordeal in these dreams. She was being held down and choked and abused, things being inserted to her. Really, really scary shit. And after she comes forward, the police questioned her about her experience, if she could remember anything about the house or David. This is when they showed her the tape. This caused her to have a huge mental breakdown. She remembered everything. All of the missing pieces that she couldn't remember were suddenly filled in. Yes, and once this happened, they essentially released it to the media that they had had a big break in the case, and they released a bunch of information, and another victim came forward. Her name is Angelica. She was a sex worker and drug abuser, according to the article, who was assaulted by David before Cynthia was. However, when she reported her abuse, they basically shrugged her off because she's a sex worker. They did nothing. So she came to the police once she'd gone to the media, and they finally took her seriously. They finally listened to her because they had to. Very fucked up. Her name was Angelica Montano. She was an acquaintance of Ray, who after visiting his house to borrow cake mix, she had been drugged, raped, and tortured by Ray before being left by a highway. So with all this information, they started building a case against her, and they questioned Cindy, and she instantly cracked. She's like, I'm going to sell this motherfucker down the river. She did not care. She instantly turned on a dime. She said she'd tell them anything for a reduced sentence. She confirmed that he was tipped off by the FBI about his behavior, which made him get rid of a lot of his incriminating evidence. So he, a couple days before he was arrested, before the Cynthia ordeal, the FBI came to him to talk about a suspected slavery ring that he was a part of. And he was a part of one. He used to kidnap girls and sell them to other abusers. But he lied to them, and they left him alone. They didn't investigate it any further. They just let it go. It tells you a lot about the government because he wasn't arrested there and then. Anyways, so Cindy confirmed that he would kidnap and sell women to other abusers. So not only is he a rapist, serial killer, but he's also a sex trafficker. She explained that David had killed over 30 people. However, Cindy said that David would get rid of evidence after a certain amount of time, so it is likely we will never know who these women were. Yes. She explained that there were 7 bodies that David had disposed of in the man-made lake. Investigators decided that waters were too deep and too dark to search. They had the opportunity to drain the lake, but they decided that it was too expensive, so they did nothing. So those women's bodies will never be recovered. Cindy was charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping, accessory to kidnapping, accessory to criminal penetration. Guess how long she was sentenced to? Guess how many years?
I say guess 7.
36. She was sentenced for 36 years, but she only had to serve half of her sentence. She served 19 years.
19.
Yes. She was up for release in 2017. There's not a lot of information about whether she's out or not, but we can basically assume that she is.
Oh my god.
Yes. And now Jessie. So Jessie was David's daughter to one of his first wives. She was known in the area to be a violent drug dealer who lived with her mother. Jessie apparently said to police that she never knew what was happening to the women and just assumed they were being raped and that she never participated in the rape. Jessie says that she tipped off the FBI about her father's slavery ring, so she says that she did that. However, nothing came of it. Kelly Garrett's, who was one of the victims, her accusation of Jessie about how Jessie had delivered her to the father led to her arrest. She was charged with kidnapping, criminal sexual penetration, criminal sexual contact, and conspiracy. Guess how many years she got?
I guess 7.
She got 2 years. And she was on probation for a year. Yes. Yes. So David denied having any involvement in the crimes. Sure, Jan. He said that all of the women were consenting. He explained that they were paid and that there was no proof of rape. He said that he was the victim of these. He said he was the victim of these prostitutes' slander. Yes. Yes. He's the victim. He's the victim. He's the victim.
Oh, poor David.
Oh my god, poor baby. So the courts, because they didn't find any more bodies, they could only charge him with 3 cases. Investigators.
Oh yeah, they couldn't find any more bodies
because they didn't.
Because they didn't.
Exactly.
Because
they didn't want to.
Yeah. Investigators suspected 40 more cases due to his accounts in a journal. Essentially, he would journal down abduction dates and description of what he called procedures on the women. Yes. So in 2001, the court subjected him to 3 separate trials, one for Cynthia, one for Kelly, and one for Angelica. However, Angelica's case was never brought forward as she died of a drug overdose. So she never got justice. David agreed to a plea deal in which he received 224 years in prison for the exchange of his daughter getting a reduced sentence, and she served 2 years, so that's quite a reduced sentence. Investigators believe that he raped, tortured, and killed over 60 women in his lifetime, based on his psychological profiles, and On May 28th, he suffered a heart attack at 62 after just agreeing to show investigators where he buried the bodies.
No.
So we will likely never find these women. He was 3 years into his sentence. 3 years. Yes. Thanks to Cynthia.
I feel like a lot of these people just get out.
Yes.
They get
Hard
really,
work.
They get such easy, they
Yes.
just get a really easy way out.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows no form of justice.
No, none. Thanks to Cynthia's escape, authorities were able to uncover David's actions and likely saved hundreds of women. She is a hero. And as of 2002, the toy box is now open to the public, so you can go visit it.
What?
Yes. Authorities opened it in hopes that more victims would see it and come forward. They hoped that it would trigger their memories. But it's become a tourist trap.
How much does it cost? How much does it cost? $20 to go visit?
I've read anywhere
go
between
to
14
Tomato.
and 22. 14 and 22.
It's not too expensive.
I mean, yep.
Well,
to America now.
So no victims have come forward from that, but the FBI has said that they are continuing to get more and more tips about it. So yeah, that is the David Parker Ray case, the toy box killer. It is incredibly heavy and incredibly sad, and just fuck that we'll never have justice for those women.
It's missing window.
Okay, so today I'll be cutting names. It's another German case. Because I can't pronounce everything. Sorry.
Do it! Don't be a pussy! Do it! No, come on.
No, I already cut it in the notes, so it's too late. So in this case, it's an incredibly deep case. There were a lot of things that happened. Like I said before, I can't give you all the details unless I read the book and watch the documentary, which I didn't. Just tried to find a couple of news sources. Sorry about my bad research. I'm about to burp.
She shits herself.
Don't tempt me, bro.
Don't jinx me. Don't jinx me.
All right. So on February 17th, 1988, in Vienna in Austria, a young girl is brought into the world whose name is Natascha Kampusch. She grew up with her mother and father, and it said that she lived a relatively, regular life. However, apparently her mother was quite unhappy, suffered a bit of depression.
Same.
Just unhappy. Yep, we've all had that. Just shortly after her 10th birthday on March 2nd, 1998, Natascha is taken. So her mother had claimed that she had gone to school that Monday morning but never came home. Her mother had called Natascha's school to see if she was there. The school had advised her that Natascha had missed all of her classes for that day. So after that phone call, her mother had called the police and reported her daughter missing. So something was clearly wrong. The search for the girl was immediately started. First, the police checked the route from the Kampusch house to the school. After that, they started searching the nearest ponds. They used police dogs, but they couldn't find a single trace of her. Nothing. They began exploring the idea of her being kidnapped, because obviously at that point you're stuck in an avenue. You've got no scent of her. You've got virtually nothing.
Yeah.
So it was at that point that a 12-year-old had come forward and said, look, I have seen Natascha being kidnapped. And at first they were a little bit skeptical. They're like, all right, cool, whatever. But then they mentioned the fact.
Remind me never to come to you if I've seen someone be kidnapped. Jamie, I've seen someone be kidnapped. Cool, whatever.
No, it's fine. No, get me wrong. That's what police are like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially in the last story. Fuck. Yeah.
Well, literally, they're like, "Oh, you were raped and murdered."
Cool,
Fine.
whatever.
Not even murdered.
Yeah.
But, it's good. We will.
Where's the body, Irene? Where's the body? Show me the body. Yeah.
It be what it be. What can you do?
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
It happens.
We
You do
shouldn't
be
joke
what-
about this. Oh my god.
This is when she tells us that we shouldn't be joking because there's about to be really horrific shit.
Oh, true. All right, be serious now.
All right, we're good. Okay, so They used police dogs, but they couldn't find any trace of her. So they began exploring the idea of her being kidnapped. And when a 12-year-old came forward and said that she'd seen a girl being forced into a white minivan by 2 men. So the police, at this point, they were like, all right, this is our main lead. We've got absolutely nothing else. Vienna's quite a small town. So what they did was, this is props to them. All right, this is more than anyone else has ever done, as far as I'm concerned. The police decided to check every single vehicle and owner of the same car. So this included a man called Wolfgang Prick-Koplil from Strasshof.
You know, Wolfgang.
Who had a white van that looked very similar to the one that the girl described. The man explained that he needed his car to transport building materials. The detective asked the standard questions, and the conversation showed that Wolfgang did not have an alibi.
Did you do it? No.
Okay, great. No
Yeah.
problem.
Sick. You're free to go. Bye.
Pretty much. However, they dismissed him, and they were convinced, I think from what I read, that they had pretty much interviewed up to 706 people. So out of the 706, this man said that he had used his minivan for, building purposes.
Costco.
There was nothing alarming. Absolutely fine. The room Natascha was being held in was 2.5 meters underground. There were no windows. There was only a ventilation that supplied her with some fresh air. There were 2 doors, and it was 5 square meters big, which is not that big.
I'm beginning to think I might have heard of this.
You would have. You absolutely would have.
I'm beginning to think I might have heard of this.
There's absolutely no way that you haven't.
Yes.
The issue with this case is that there are so many cases like it.
Yeah.
There are at least 5 off the top of my head that I can think of that are
custom
very similar.
plexiglass box?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a different case.
Like I said, no. Like I said, there are
Yeah.
5. This is the sad part, is
Yeah.
that there are 5 incredibly similar cases
Yeah.
like this that I
Yeah.
can think of off the top of my head. So the room was completely soundproof. There was a sink, a toilet, and a shower in the room. So everything that she essentially needed was there. The only access into this room was through I'm going to call him Wolfgang because I can't pronounce the last name. I'm a fucking Aussie. So into Wolfgang's garage, and so that door.
So it was in his house.
Yes. So the door into the garage, there's one door and there's a second door. So the first door is behind a closet, and the second door is the room to her room. And I read something that he reports that this the second door, so her door, was about 205 pounds. I'm not really sure what that equates to. I'm guessing about 100 kilos.
About,
give or take.
It's about half, yeah.
Yeah. It's a heavy door. I weigh 50
heavy door.
kilos.
Yeah.
It's a heavy door.
That's like a submarine door. That's like one of those big fuck-off metal doors that you have to
Yeah. It's a big door. So for 6 months, Natascha was not allowed to leave her prison. But later, when Wolfgang started that he failed to trust her, she started to let her out for little short periods of time. So he also brought her things that Natascha wanted. So anything she asked for, she pretty much got. So she was given TV, she was given a radio, she was given multiple study books, she was given a desk, she had a bed. Things were essentially applied to her. So she was able to educate herself. She could see things for the way that they were. Books, games, magazines, anything. In 2004, the detectives have realized that they may have gone down a wrong path when it comes to Natascha's disappearance. They had one suspect by the name of Michael who was similar. He had really similar offences. So he had a couple of child abduction, he had a couple of rapes, things like that.
Just a couple. We all have a few. We all have a few. We all have a few. Come on. Don't be shy. Open your purse.
Show us all. But they genuinely had no proof, and they targeted him quite a bit.
Yeah.
So in the same year, Wolfgang had decided he became incredibly relaxed and confident with Natascha. So this was at the point that he allowed her to go out into the garden the garden. And even let her use the neighbor's pool. Shut up, Brad.
The garden.
Well, like, what else?
Where is the garden?
She literally
The
got
yard?
The
Front yard? The outdoors.
Americans.
Me, I say yard.
American.
Is that not a thing?
Really?
Yeah.
I don't.
The yard.
Say backyard.
Yeah.
Yard.
Front yard.
So anyway, so he let her even use the neighbor's pool a couple of times. So like, he was
Was that
incredibly
in
relaxed.
their
Like,
garden?
No. No. No, it wasn't. It was in the next door neighbor's garden.
Yeah.
So he was obviously really, really relaxed. Like, could you imagine keeping this person hostage and you're like, yo, it's fine. Go use the neighbor's yard. Like, it's fine. Go for it. So he went as far as to take her on a skiing trip when she was 17. So from what I read, there were a couple of she originally denied this. She was like, no, he didn't take me on a holiday, rah, rah. But eventually she admitted to it. She was like, you know, we went on a skiing trip, but it was completely abandoned. There was absolutely no way that I could
Little
escape.
Miss Polly Pocket has gone to a ski trip,
know.
and I have not. I have never seen snow. And this bitch, this Stockholm Syndrome hoe, has been on a... Okay, I'm jealous. She had a man keep her, and she got to go on
Why
a
can't
trip.
someone kidnap me?
She got kept by a man, and she got to go to the snow.
A defamation case. So he even went as far as taking her to a skiing trip when she was 17. After she turned 18, she was allowed to leave the house with Wolfgang and even went to the shops with him. However, he threatened to kill her if she attempted to escape. Wolfgang convinced Natascha that all the doors and windows were rigged with explosives and that he had a gun and wouldn't hesitate to kill her.
They always do that. All of
So
these
I
cases.
read again.
Yeah.
They genuinely do that. So I had read that, you know, he was like, you need me to get through this next part of the door. If I'm not there, things are going to go bad. Things are going to explode. You're going to get killed. Rah, rah.
Yeah.
So after she turned 18, she was allowed to leave the house with Wolfgang and even went to the shops with him. But obviously, like I said, she was threatened. You know, fear was instilled in her. She was like, if I try and leave it all at any point, things are going to go bad.
Yeah. So he fully like psychologically conditioned her to be like, I can't leave you even if I want to.
And she was given just the bare necessities, and she was given just the bare necessities to get through. So like I said, she was given books, she was given any form of education that she asked for. She was given a shower, a sink. That's the bare necessity that she needed to get through. So a large portion of Kampusch's time was spent upstairs. She was doing housework for Wolfgang and cooking for him. So forgive me for this pronunciation. Dietmar Echter, Kampusch's media advisor, said that Wolfgang would beat her so badly that she could hardly walk. He would starve her to make her physically weak and unable to escape. Her BMI had reached as low as 14.8 during captivity.
Jealous.
And rough BMI is from 18.5 to 25.
Really?
Yeah, so she was as low as 14.
So I'm
Well,
a dumb bitch, but at that low level, your body stops working, doesn't it? Doesn't your body need a certain amount of body fat to...
Be surprised at how much it can pull through. The same with temperatures as well. People like, if you reach a certain temperature for your body starts to give in. However, I've had literally personal experience. I've had a kidney infection and my temperature got to 41 degrees. I remember like my eyes rolling in the back of my head, but I still survived. So I think it depends.
Yeah.
It just depends.
Yeah.
So she was repeatedly raped by Wolfgang on multiple different occasions, which is I don't want to be horrible, but no surprise. So on the 23rd of August in 2006 at 12:53 p.m. So this is roughly, where is it? I think this is roughly after 3,096 days. So for over 3,000 days.
How many years is that?
how many years is that?
That is
It's like 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Quick maths. Sorry.
So she had spent an incredibly long time with this person. So 23rd of August 2006 at 12:53 p.m., she was cleaning and vacuuming her kidnapper's automobile in a garden when Wolfgang got a call on his mobile phone. Because of the vacuum's loud noise, naturally, he walked away to take the call. Kampusch had left the cleaner running and ran away. This is where I stop
Good
here.
girl.
I genuinely remember seeing a 60 Minutes case. I remember her specifically saying that he had left the gate unlocked. All she did was a couple of steps, the gate was unlocked, and she fucking ran. So,
Good girl. Oh, God.
unseen by Wolfgang, who completed the phone call without any sign of being disrupted or distracted. Kampusch ran for some 200 meters to the gardens and a street, jumping several fences and asking passers-by to call police. However, they paid her no attention. It goes back on your case, Brad. The bystander effect. I googled this. It is such a common thing. There is a major case of the bystander effect where people yell out they need help.
Yeah.
It happens.
I've noticed a couple similarities between our stories. They all had a dog, because the dog in your story, the dogs in my story, and Wolfgang. It's dog. Just saying. And they all got a phone call. Just saying.
So you can do a lot of research on the bystander theory. It's quite horrific. James and I were just experiencing the other day. There's across and up to houses. There's mad domestic violences. And I said to him, I was like, do we call the police? And he was like, I'm not sure. And I was like, we don't want to be those people who don't do anything. Yeah. Like, at any point given, if you are questioning whether you should call the police, you should also question the fact that whether you are those people that do nothing and contribute to the case. I just want to make that incredibly clear for listeners.
I always call the cops. And if you call the cops and someone's already called them, it's not like you're doubling up. The person will say, we've already had reports, don't worry, just stay inside.
Exactly. It's incredibly serious to take in that point. So she ran to 200 meters to the garden in the street and jumping fences, asking passers-by, but absolutely no one stopped to give her attention. After about 5 minutes, she knocked on on a window of a 71-year-old neighbor known as Injti. I'm not naturally say that correct. And she says, I'm Natascha Kampusch. The neighbor called the police. At this point, she weighed around 45 kilos when she went missing at the age of 10. When she was found, she weighed 48 kilos and only grew around 15 centimeters.
Do you know the last time I was 45 kilos? I think I was 5.
The last time I was 45 kilos, I was in year 7. Because I suffered from anorexia. So that needs to put that into perspective.
Yeah.
Year 6, I was 45 kilos. By year 7 and year 8, I weighed roughly 48 kilos. So that puts it into
And how old was she when she was found?
It was 18 when she was
18.
found.
She was 45 kilos. Do we know how tall she was?
So she grew 15 centimeters. I think the actual centimeters are online, but I didn't write them down. So that's not that much. I've got a 30 centimeter ruler literally right in front of me.
Yeah.
About that much.
Fuck. In 10 years.
Yeah. That's not much at all. To go from 10 to 18.
That's fucked.
That's incredibly difficult. Before Kampusch was, before she freed herself, Wolfgang was trying to procure false papers as a Czech citizen to begin a new life. Wolfgang knew that the police were after him.
Oh my God.
So this happened immediately after she escaped. He immediately knew that something wasn't right. She is gone.
Yeah.
This is it for me. So he threw himself in front of a train at Leonord station in Vienna.
Did he die?
He had an opportunity and planned to commit suicide rather than be caught, having told Kampusch before they would not catch him alive. For 3,096 days, Natascha was held against her will.
Fuck. So she did not get any justice.
She did not get a single piece of justice.
Fuck.
After hearing about his death, apparently Natascha cried inconsolably. She lit a candle at the morgue for him, and she did still refer to him as a criminal, but she felt sorry for the poor soul.
So she was like Stockholm syndrome, basically.
Some psychologists suspect that she suffered from Stockholm syndrome,
Right.
but it's unclear because she, from multiple things that I read, that she'd gone against this. She was like,
Yeah.
no, like I don't consider him to be a friend or anything like that. But naturally, I would be the same. If you are kidnapped for that long, you want to make things peaceful to ensure your survival.
I mean, also the human instinct is to give like empathy. Like you have to.
Absolutely, which might technically classify as Stockholm syndrome, but at that point, what can you do?
Yeah.
Honestly, if it's been over 3,000 days, there's nothing you can do for that.
10 years she was stuck with him.
So since then, there have been multiple movies and books made about her and her ordeal. Most of the money she's raised has been donated, and she's also inherited the house that she was kept in. She has been visiting it on numerous occasions and potentially cleaning it out to move in.
You
So
would.
that's sort of,
She spent 10 years there. She doesn't want to live there. She doesn't want to live there.
no, but she does. She's cleaned it out. She's cleaned it up. She's visited it. But the reason that she's done this is because she doesn't want people to destroy it.
Right.
I'm not kidding you. That is what she's written. And I feel that in some parts it is Stockholm syndrome, but at some parts she's just being an empathetic human being, is that he's committed this crime, but she doesn't want to inflict pain on this human, which I think shows a lot about her.
But I think she's also coming from a point of view where it's like, oh, I spent this long in this place. You get attached to a place.
You get attached to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So obviously this was all that I gathered from kind of Wikipedia, no resource, and a couple of other websites. But without reading the book and without reading her mother's book as well, it was quite difficult. I think that there are some aspects of this case that definitely instill Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, it just depends on what you're dealing with, because if you're wanting to ensure your survival,
Yeah.
you're gonna want to relate to that person. Like if you know that this person wants to hurt you, and you're like, you know what, if I do what they say, if I participate, if I'm nice, I might live through this.
But it's also like humans, when they're being traumatized, they tend to change the narrative. So if she might have, oh, he's hurting me, but it's because he's hurting.
Exactly.
She might have done that to protect herself.
She was obviously really upset when he had killed himself, but he'd known straight away that he was not going to survive this. If he was captured, he would be imprisoned for literally the rest of his life. Like over 3,000 days, he kept this girl. Quite intense. Her mother released a book about the desperate days that she obviously didn't have with her daughter. But it's really, I think it is an incredibly difficult situation. I think that until you experience it from Natascha's from perspective, that you're not going to be able to have an opinion.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Why do people feel the need to have an opinion? That's my question.
Exactly.
Why are they criticizing this girl who was kept and raped for 10 years? Why do they get an opinion about her trauma?
Exactly. And there is no way that you can fathom that. Like, we are all struggling with coronavirus right now. We're all struggling with quarantine. We're confined in our regular homes, let alone in a 5-meter squared bedroom that she has no windows. She's only got a little ventilation vent.
Yeah.
And
She was a child.
she was a child. She was literally 10 years
child.
old when she was taken.
We've all been complaining for like 5 months about
Honestly.
5 months of restrictions, and she did 10 years.
And she did 10 years.
Fuck.
So yeah, that was my case. And like I said, so she had made multiple books, multiple movies. She originally first did just a one-off interview because a lot of people had wanted to interview her. And I think it was £298 per minute, which is roughly 246, almost $800 per minute.
Fuck.
Of her original interview. And where am I going with this? I'm going blank. Yeah, so she was like, so this was the original price for it. She had given no other interviews. And she just said nothing. For so long, she was like, I could not fathom anything. Like, There is at no point that you can comprehend that.
So when she got released, because he died, she couldn't even sue for like wrongful. She couldn't
No.
sue him.
He was the last person, from what I read, he was the last person in his family to be alive.
Fuck.
So that house that she was kept in was originally was Wolfgang's grandmother's house. So that's what, and they pretty much gave it to her. They were like, do whatever you want. So she's still, so from a little bit that I read, she pays taxes, she pays water, she pays rates on everything on a house that she was kept in. But she said, I can't part with it.
Yeah.
Because of what she says is that it'll be torn down, it'll be disrespected, and she understands that, but she doesn't want that to happen.
But also, like, if they erase the house, they erase everything that happened to her in that house. Like,
which can be both a pro and con.
Yeah.
You can argue that as both a pro and a con, like, because she's like, I don't entirely hate him because he still allowed her to have an education. She said, I miss the drugs, I miss the partying, I missed all these bad friendships. This is literally what she said, which she isn't wrong. Fucking, we've all been there. But
she missed the freedom, though. Like, that is...
She did miss the freedom. I clearly remember this being on 60 Minutes, and I remember even the voiceover being, because obviously she doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
And it being like a delayed subtitles and a delayed voiceover, and I just remember watching it like, we've been kept, and she just said that the gate was left unlocked, and she just ran.
Got away, yeah.
She said she didn't know why, but she just ran.
I think sometimes your body acts before your mind can think about it.
Yeah, and to see that she actually was able to get away as well after all those years, you know, whereas a lot of other cases I remember, you know, they were saved. They didn't run away.
So is what I meant to say before, was with all the money that she had accumulated through all of her books and movies, she donated that to the Joseph Fritzl case. I don't know if you guys know about that, but it'll be worth having a look on.
Yep, I've heard of that.
So it pretty much happened the same as her, but except Joseph Fritzl was the father and the victim was the daughter.
Yeah.
Had about 3 kids. She had donated to Madeleine McCann, Joseph Fritzl, and several other kind of charities in New Mexico and I think maybe New Caledonia or something.
So this is in Germany, right? Right. So what is their prison system? Like, do they have... I know you might not know this, but would they have given him, like, the chair if they had... Like, if he had been prosecuted?
I don't believe so. I think... This is my personal opinion coming through. Germany has a very twisted system, so I know that they're very much against gays. I know that they're very much against... very, very basic, obvious things for us progressives. Right. I think they're very much against for. But I know that they host some of the world's most worst serial killers, who aren't dead. So I don't actually believe that they have the death penalty. But I can't confirm that. They might genuinely have the firing squad.
You know what? We all have a resource.
I'm not a lawyer.
A resource that...
Yeah, there's Google. I'm not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
I'm like no defamation
case.
Wait,
you're not a lawyer? You started this.
This is just my opinion.
No, wow.
Germany does not have death penalty.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, there you go. Brad's Googling it. So, yeah. So, I think that makes a lot of sense because they've got literally one of the world's worst murderers. Yeah. Who I think was a cannibalism and murdered almost 20 plus people.
That's not the werewolf of Dusseldorf, is it?
I think it is, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Brad.
Yeah. Me? Read too much? No.
No.
Yeah.
So obviously, like I said before, like this is a very heavy case, but from what I read, that there's not a lot of info because she was so hesitant. Apparently, for a long time, she didn't contact her mother. She didn't contact any news sources. I think she genuinely just wanted to be alone to process what she'd gone through.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is in her book. I think she's got about 3 books, one posted by her and 2 others by journalists.
Yeah.
and there's at least one movie. So I think from that standpoint alone, it is very hard to kind of give or take any information. Apparently she's been incredibly cyberbullied since. That's her now.
She's been cyberbullied. The girl who was enslaved and raped for 10 years is being
apparently
cyberbullied.
she's being cyberbullied.
For what?
For example, if someone told me to go die, the police would see it as a kind of suggestion, not an actual threat. At some point, I got so tired of it.
I think as well, like, I'm sure she would have gotten like 90% support. There's just that you do
absolutely.
focus on the negative more.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, that's why she was so hesitant to say she'd been on a holiday, because people warp that. Oh, did she want to be with him? Is that like,
Why did she run away sooner?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
So here we have Natascha tried to shake off her past, but sometimes found it difficult to do so. Most recently, she wanted to sell the house of her kidnapper, which she was given after his death, to a group of refugees, but the neighbors and the mayor of her town were against it. She still has to pay for electricity, water, and taxes in the house that she was held captive in. It still remains today and just does so of her nightmares.
Fuck.
She does not have a boyfriend, but sometimes she still imagines what it would be like to be a mother one day.
Oh, honey, I hope she's gone to therapy.
Former kidnapper victim finds peace in her newly discovered passion for horse riding and her lovely mare Lorelei. So it is so hard. I think definitely, I don't think there's any way one person can fathom that. I think you'll generally have to do your own research. There were so many different articles. And obviously she has several books.
Yeah. Throw some money her way.
Yeah.
She needs it.
Absolutely.
I think I'm going to buy that book.
She tends to donate it mostly, which is not a bad thing.
Shit. That you're right. It was a long period of time, but it's not that that case was incredibly heavy, but it is incredibly interesting just how she dealt with that.
Yeah, and like props to her, like for 3,000 days to be held captive and you know, to not go into detail as well. Like if that was me, I'd be like, you know what, this is every single day. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it just puts into perspective that we need to shut the fuck up about lockdown.
No, that's not what it's saying though. It might make you feel like that, Brad, but that's not the case.
Well, I mean, she was captured for 10 years, and Karen is being forced to wear a mask in public, and that infringes on her rights. Just saying. Let's not get political.
Oh,
thing. Yeah, that's.
I guess that was my
Yeah.
So like I said, there was so there's a JC Lee Dugard case. There's a Joseph Fritzl case who was a perpetrator. And then there were 3 girls, separate names, who were kidnapped on all different occasions and kept in pretty much similar conditions to Natascha that you can look up.
Yeah.
I think this is what we were talking about last week, was like, you guys were like, was this the one that she was held in the box, the shipping container in the back? But that was JC Lee Dugard. Yeah. But I was thinking of Natascha and because they're all so similar, tend to kind of overlap.
There's also one where she was kept in a fiberglass box underground for money, and they kept her drugged the entire time. But she had pneumonia or something, and she was underground, and they kept her drugged the entire time. But yeah, they built this fiberglass box with a chimney so she could breathe, and they just drugged her the entire time.
I don't recall that case at all.
Yeah.
Is that like based off like you?
Yeah, I live in a coffin. They let me out. I've been walking around here for a little bit. This is actually my garden. Yeah.
So many plants.
Yeah, so many plants. Oh my god. Just this big vegetable. But yeah. So that was this episode this week.
You know what? Okay. I think we all need to end on a happy note.
Yes.
I think we should all say something that has made us happy this week to kind of bring up the mood. And, you know, I know a lot of other podcasts do it, but you know what? I think we definitely need to do it as well because...
Something happy that happened this week. I got a new phone. I got a new phone. I got the Samsung
Oh,
Galaxy
that's
S20.
good.
The S20.
Oh, that
Yeah.
new phone feeling is
Is it good?
amazing.
I saw your door opening in the background and I thought it was mine. And I was like,
Oh, Lawrence, it's Lawrence.
he says hello.
I was like, whose door?
Um,
I'm oblivious.
what about you, Jamie? What made you happy this week? You got some bad news this week, so what made you happy?
It's been, you know what, it has been such a really, really, really rough week for me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm incredibly happy for my friends and I'm really thankful for my partner and my dogs. And that's pretty much only where I can leave it at because it's been, I can't do anything.
You started a podcast this week. That's something.
I know, there we go. So like I said, I'm incredibly happy for you guys and my new little baby. Hello. So that's where I'm at.
I think that's a good thing to be happy about.
Erin, what's yours?
My happy thing is that I got a box of 6-pack of Daniel's Donuts, which Daniel's Donuts is very, very like
Far
amazing.
away.
Yeah, far away. I got it delivered.
They're
Got it delivered, didn't drive to it.
gourmet artisan
Gourmet.
donuts.
Filled
Yes.
to the brink with cream,
Yeah.
and you know what? I was
Decadent.
looking for. Oh, yes, decadent. Yeah. So
I have to ask Erin, is it so worth degrading from a vegan to a vegetarian?
it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yes. You know what? You know what?
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's not call it degrading. Let's not call it
yourself.
degrading. Let's not call it degrading.
Sorry, it's
Changing. It's different.
Changing.
changing. Yeah.
It's better than what I am.
Different
I'm not
steps.
either of those things. So you're doing good. You're doing your part.
Yes. Thank you.
No, props to you though. I couldn't do either of those
No.
things. So
Yeah. So how many donuts did you get?
Well, I got 2 6-packs.
I thought you
So
said
one for my
six
partner, one for
six
me.
packs.
Oh no!
I was like, Jesus Christ.
excuse me, where's mine?
Yeah. I was like, do you get a discount code with that many? Yeah.
Can I use
Special
that?
code Erin
Yeah.
hashtag.
Code Erin. Yeah.
No, well, I don't know if they're freezable. That'd be handy if they were freezable. Then you could buy 6-packs.
I
Put it
think
in
the
freezer.
cream would I think the cream would come out.
Find
worse.
out.
Yeah, I think
Put one in the freezer.
and the
see
chocolate would
how you
sweat.
go.
If it's chocolate topped, it would sweat. So and you get that really gross plasticky chocolate when you took it back out. Yeah.
Right, that makes sense.
I've
Right.
just ruined your happy day of the week.
Thank you very much. No, it's
Yeah.
alright. It was only 1 6-pack, so I have to eat it all one day. So that's fine.
Although, okay, I have to share a really good thing. Actually, I just realized last night I made meatballs for James and I, and they tasted almost identical to my nonna's, which was such an accomplishment for me because my nonna is a nonna,
Yeah.
and no one is as high standard as a nonna ever.
Do you have something
And
to
they
tell
were-
us? Do you have a kid who has a kid?
So actually, no, I spoke to my cousin when she was over here a year ago, and I was like, and we were making meatballs, and I was like, she's the same age as me, but she's Swedish, Swedish and Italian, Australian and Italian.
Your meatballs should be amazing.
Yeah, and I was like, we become nonnas, and she was like, oh, I was thinking about this, Jamie. She was like, when we have kids, do we actually become nonnas? And I was like, I hope so. I want to. That would be the highest compliment.
You do
Become
what
a nonna.
my aunt did and just adopt the accent. Even if it isn't what you are. Just adopt the accent. Just take it. Yoink. My culture now,
too
bitch.
easy.
My culture now.
Yeah, pretty much. Too
Pizza,
easy.
pasta.
This time 2 years ago, I was with her in fucking France, and we're in Nice. We were partying. We were living. It was.
That sounds pretty
30
nice.
degrees. Shut up.
But yeah, so we will return to you next week, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
And guys, this is our slogan. You can't spell manslaughter without laughter.
I was gonna try and add that, but
No. Not while we're in
Oh,
quarantine. It just won't line up.
We'll work on it. I promise you we'll work on it.
Yep. All right.
But we love
We'll be
you
like
all, and
professionals.
thank you so much for listening. And we hope to see you next week.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.